Hey, I'm Nathan Brandt, here today in the Cole School of Iron showing off our very own KA75. So a couple months ago, we went and approached Postville Blacksmith Shop about purchasing the rights to this hammer. This hammer was invented by Grant Sarver in the early 90s and then taken over by Bob Bergman for the last 20 some years. So we were super excited to be able to bring this on board as an additional product to our press family. And I want to go over a few things today with you, kind of explaining how the hammer works, how to set it up, and what to expect when you're forging with it. All right, let's take a look at the KA75. Starting at the top, up here we've got two tapered pins. These are inserted into expanding collets, and every time this hammer makes a hit, it's actually swelling those collets and helping to hold this assembly together. So right here, we've got traditional 7-degree tapered key dovetails for our dies. Our dies are 4140 or H13, depending on what they're gonna be. And we have the flat dies in here right now. So as we move down, these are our air cylinders. You'll see there's a small one and a large one. The small one is for the lift, whereas the large one is gonna bring that ram down at a very high velocity. 75-pound ram weight, which does not include the dies. Down here, as we move down the machine, this is a solid 4.5-inch round for the anvil. These are the die springs that hold everything in alignment and just provide some cushion. So the way that the machine functions is, I'm gonna turn on the air supply. When I turn that on, my ram is going to jump out of its idle position, and at that point, if my face is above it, it's gonna get hurt. So we're gonna just come down here and pop it up. So as you can see, don't leave your coffee cup on it. We should B-roll somebody throwing a coffee cup for that part. That'd be really funny. My run position, my ram is extended, my air pressure is on. I do have an inline air oiler from Milton. These will be supplied with the machines, but I do not recommend mounting them to the hammer like we have here because they tend to jar themselves apart, as you can see. So that should go on the wall, really, really close to the hammer, just to provide constant lubrication to all of the components inside of the air cylinders. It's a great way to extend the life of your seals. These hammers have been in production for a really long time, and one of the things that tends to wear rather quickly are the seals inside of the air cylinder. So giving a really nice, thorough lubrication to that is only going to be beneficial for the long-term life of the hammer. So now that we're in this position, if I want to make a single blow, that's what this hammer does. It does single blows. When I press the pedal down, the hammer will come down. And you can see, when I hold the pedal down, it stays down. When I release the pedal, it shoots back to its home position. So if I adjust how I can make a really light blow, if I just want to center punch something, if I just want to taper it. So the thing about this hammer, because it's a single blow, it's as similar to a striker, you know, somebody with a sledgehammer standing on the far side of your anvil that I've ever been able to find. You can really accommodate specific special light to hard blows, but it's all up to the skill of the operator and the ability that they have to make that feathering blow down to the work. So another thing to note with this hammer is that because it's a single blow hammer, you want to actually let off of the pedal right before it hits its work. Because if I clamp to it, it's going to stay on the work and suck heat out of that work. So when I'm forging, I'm going to really rapidly hit that and let off right before that die comes to my workpiece. So as far as maintenance for the machine, you want to make sure that you have an inline air lubricator. That's for the seals on the inside. And I'm going to try to keep a nice light film of oil on the ram. So this uses 954 aluminum bronze bushings that are cast into my liners here. And that's what these steel rods ride on. So I want to make sure that there's a nice layer of lubrication on that at all times. The manual and I both recommend that you would lubricate this every day before use. It doesn't need to be drippy, but it's a great way to just ensure longevity of the machine. that lubrication will flow down as well. There's additional bushings down here in the end caps on the rods, and all of this needs to be lubricated and maintained as lubricated to ensure that nothing's wearing out prematurely. So let's talk about air compressors. In our shop, we're running this on a 5 horsepower, 220 volt air compressor. Now, you can run this on as small as like a 20 gallon, 2 horsepower, something like that. But you wanna have 10 CFM available, and you wanna have between 80 and 120 PSI available. We're currently running this at 100 PSI, and we have access up to roughly 20 CFM. So the more air that you have available to the machine, the better it's gonna run. If you have a long run to your air compressor, it is recommended to add a little slave tank right next to your hammer of about 20 gallons. That's just to make sure that enough air can get to the hammer to keep it coming up and slamming down with the greatest amount of efficiency. We're only running 1/2 inch lines on this entire system, so we want to make sure that we've got maximum flow to the hammer for the best performance. But if you need to run it on a small air compressor, it's totally feasible. Just make sure you run the largest air line you can for the shortest run possible. So for the KA75 foundation, in the Cole School, we have this mounted on a rubber belt that's bolted down to our reinforced 8-inch thick concrete. This concrete's also super old, and it seems to be handling the load quite well. You're gonna wanna make sure you're using minimum of 6-inch reinforced concrete to bolt this down, and absolutely put something like a Fabrica pad or some of this same style rubber belting. You can also use 3/4 or 1-inch OSB. That'll all help dampen the vibration transferring into your concrete. It's also recommended, if you're not going to do that, you can mount it to a rather thick 2x2 steel plate. Think like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-inch thick plate, whatever you can get a hold of. That'll really help to dissipate the load over a large area and ensure that your floor is not cracking, and you can actually keep the hammer quite mobile if that base plate is thick enough. One of the wonderful things about having a striking hammer is that I can really quickly fabricate some top tooling. You'll see these top tools featured in the Andrew Larson hammer forging video done with the K75. And I've got wonderful access to the side of my dies in both directions, even though it's an H-frame machine, to feed my work in. So if I'm lengthening a bar, or maybe I'm working on the flats and I need to spread that out, I've got the ability to access that. We do include a 5/8 tapped hole on the back of the anvil if you wanted to bolt on a hardy hole or something like that to help hold these in place. But for the most part, I find it's easiest to keep everything loose. I can quickly move through my dies and leave the flat dies in the machine. We're going to be offering both the 4140 flat dies like you see here, as well as combo dies. Those will both be available for this machine when you purchase it from the website, coleiron.com. And we'll have additional dies over time as we kind of figure out what dies are needed. But for the most part, I would recommend starting with the flat dies and using different top tools and spring fullers and all the different designs and shapes. These are super cheap and super easy to make. You can have 1,000 of them. So those are gonna be the initial dies offered. If you have inquiries about custom dies, or if you're looking for a specific drop hammer style die, reach out to us, info@coleiron.com. We'd be happy to look at what you're trying to accomplish and work together to get you a solution. So for more information on the K75, check out KA75.com or go to coleiron.com to see the full product information, videos about what you can do with this hammer, or reach out to us, info@coleiron.com. We're always happy to chat. Thank you so much for watching this video today. We hope to put a K75 in your shop soon. Thank you.